A esta altura, hablar de trabajos en conjunto entre la mafia y la CIA no debería llamarnos la atención, pero quizás hay algún desprevenido como yo, por ejemplo, que nunca supo o nunca se enteró que la propia CIA contrató a la mafia para intentar asesinar a Fidel Castro. Eso es lo que cuenta el documental Mafia Spies y hablé con los dos showrunners de esta producción que me contaron cómo fue llevar adelante todo este trabajo. Mirá.
Because there's so many conspiracy theories surrounding this story, we knew that we had to show the evidence. We had to show the testimony. We had to go to the documents visually and have people read those documents so that it all feels grounded in as much fact as possible.
The CIA wants to hire a mafia to kill Fidel Castro.
I grew up in Miami, so I knew a lot of elements of the broad elements of the story, not the details, but I knew some of the broad story. In fact, Operation Mongoose, which was the huge operation to try and remove Castro. By 1961, there were over 80,000 CIA operatives and employees in Florida, and they were the largest employer in the state of Florida. So it was a huge thing. And that Operation Mongoose, it literally took place 4 miles from where I'm sitting right now. So it's very close. So I grew up with understanding the Cold War, but I didn't know these details of the mafia and all these other elements that went in. I knew the lore of the Fontainebleau Hotel, and I knew these sort of elements. You grew up with it, but to get these details, we didn't know it until two producers that Tom and I knew very well, Matt Jackson and Danny Strong, came to us with a book called Mafia Spies, written by Thomas Mayer, and said, "Hey, what do you guys think about tackling this as an unscripted series?" And we read the book and we flipped. We're like, "This is amazing. We'd love to. Of course, let's do it."
Kennedy was really keen on getting rid of Fidel Castro.
Our operation must be delicate, refined.
It's a world of deceivers and a lot of lies. So how do you work with your sources, for instance?
What's funny is, you're dealing with these very secretive patriarchal institutions where the truth is actually very murky. So you don't necessarily, the only truth we really have, or what we think is objective truth, are the documents that got declassified and released, and perhaps some of the court testimony. And if you have enough court testimony from enough sources, you have to kind of average the facts and the truth to kind of get to what you think is the truth. So there is some journalistic interpretation on our part. Basically, this is how we make the pieces come together, and we believe it's probably about 75 to 80% factual.
What's nice about some of those documents, I'll say, is that it's primary sources. So if you look at those CIA documents, it's the caseworker, it's the undersecretary themselves writing that document. So it's not like some other person writing the document about it. It is primary source material, but then again, that's as far back as we're able to go to ascertain the truth of it, right?
Which interview was the one that made you say, okay, we got this? This is the interview that we needed. We have everything here.
It's hard to say any one interview. Everybody's so good, and they all serve a particular function. You don't just randomly interview, right? You think, these are the 10 different buckets we need to cover. Who are the 10 top people in their fields to tell their section of the story? But for me, one of my favorite interviews was Tim Weiner. I just thought, because not only is he incredibly smart, he won a Pulitzer Prize, he's the funniest man. His bites were just so funny.
So much of him made the series because so many things were great sound bites. He was fun.
Yeah. This could be it. Nuclear annihilation.
What could go wrong?
We knew that we had to have a main character, and our main character was this incredible mobster named Johnny Rosselli with a fascinating history. And he was so involved with the history of the mafia and the history of the CIA, and yet he's a completely unknown character. So it was an amazing opportunity. Like, he's not a famous character. And so it was a great opportunity to use him as sort of our narrative through line to tell his story as the binding agent through all these amazing elements. So he's sort of our de facto protagonist, so to speak.
And did you work with or did you have to have CIA or FBI approval for anything that you put on the show?
Entirely. They vetted it. They censored us. They told us what we said. They actually edited it. We just gave them the footage and said, go to no, they refused to participate.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time trying to get them to participate, and they just didn't do it.
If you talk, you die.
Declassified documents is the gift of history that keeps on giving.
It's a fresh take. You see a lot of mafia stuff, you see a lot of CIA stuff, and it's very heavy-handed. We wanted to make this fun, energetic, evocative of the time period. We brought in Hollywood, we brought in James Bond, we brought in Keystone Cops, all these elements to most 99% of what you see about mafia and CIA in separate categories on TV, I think is very heavy-handed, and frankly, you see it a lot. It's the same stuff. And this is just a really new and fresh an exciting way to see it. And that's why I think people will really love it. It's
And
fun.
what's fun is we lean into the cliches and the tropes. So you think you're
Yeah.
watching those
Exactly.
sorts of old cliches, but we're actually subverting it.